Welcome back to the Emma International Deep Dive. It's good to have you with us. Today, we're covering a major shift in the medical device industry that's been in the works for a long time. And now it's officially happening.
We're talking about the FDA's transition from the Quality System Regulation, or QSR, to the Quality Management System Regulation, QMSR. The final rule was published in early 2024, and the compliance deadline is set for February 2nd, 2026.
That might sound far off, but it's really not. When you look at how complex most quality systems are, 2 years goes fast, especially when you're trying to align with a whole new framework like ISO 13485. And keep in mind, the process of aligning a legacy system to a new standard isn't always straightforward. It often involves an analysis into procedures that haven't been revisited in years, uncovering gaps and inconsistencies that can't be fixed overnight.
Exactly, because that's what QMSR is all about. It aligns FDA's Part 820 regulation with ISO 13485-2016. Instead of maintaining a separate FDA-only system, manufacturers will now need to integrate more fully with international quality management expectations. That also means many organizations will be rethinking not just documentation, but culture, how quality is approached, and prioritized across functions.
And that's a big change, but also a smart one. This brings the US in line with what many other regulatory agencies already require. It's good for harmonization, good for efficiency, but it's going to take some serious planning. And for companies with global operations, this could reduce duplication of effort. Think about it, fewer conflicting standards means fewer audits, fewer regulatory surprises, and hopefully a more streamlined compliance landscape.
Let's break it down a bit. Under the old QSR, companies had to meet FDA-specific requirements that didn't always line up with ISO standards. So a company might pass an ISO audit and still run into issues during an FDA inspection. That created frustration and inefficiencies, especially for companies operating in multiple markets.
With QMSR, that gap shrinks. The FDA is adopting ISO 13485 as its foundation and layering in just a few additional FDA specific requirements where needed. This new structure gives manufacturers a clearer target to hit, which can improve both preparedness and performance.
Right, like for complaint handling, medical device reporting, and some post-market obligations. The FDA made it clear that those pieces are still mandatory, and they've outlined the differences in their final rule and guidance. That's going to require teams to think carefully about how their current systems handle these US-specific expectations, even while aligning with ISO globally.
So if you're already ISO certified, that's great news. You're ahead of the game, but you're not done. You'll still need to review and update your procedures to make sure you're hitting all the FDA required components. In fact, some ISO certified companies are finding that they've unintentionally deprioritized US specific post market obligations. And that's an area the FDA will be paying very close attention to.
And if you've only ever followed QSR, now's the time to start building a roadmap. Because this isn't just a document update. It's a fundamental shift in how quality is defined, documented, and enforced. You're essentially laying the groundwork for a system that must work seamlessly across regulatory jurisdictions.
One of the biggest differences is the emphasis on risk. ISO 13485 requires companies to apply risk based thinking across the entire product lifecycle, not just during design, but also in purchasing, production, and post market activities. That mindset shift is critical, especially as products become more complex and supply chains more decentralized.
And that risk focus needs to be traceable. You have to show how decisions were made, what the potential risks were, how you mitigated them, and how you monitored those controls. Auditors want to see the full picture, not just a snapshot. That means making sure your risk files aren't just created at the beginning of a project and then left to gather dust. They need to live and evolve with the product.
Exactly. It's about control, not just on paper, but in practice. And that means documentation, training, and systems all need to evolve. Everyone from your design engineers to your purchasing team needs to understand how their decisions impact risk and how those decisions are documented and reviewed over time.
Another big area is supplier control. ISO is more explicit about the need for performance monitoring and ongoing qualification of external partners. Under QSR, you could sometimes get away with a little vagueness. Under QMSR, that won't cut it. Suppliers are now seen as extensions of your own quality system, and the burden of oversight is firmly on the manufacturer. You'll need data, metrics, audits, and not just annually. It has to be continuous.
And let's not forget internal audits. ISO places a lot more importance on internal audits being risk based, comprehensive, and independent. Companies that treated audits as checkbox activities under QSR are going to need a mindset shift. The audit function has to evolve from being a policing mechanism to a tool for continuous improvement. The goal isn't just compliance, it's insight.
We're already seeing that with some of the clients we're supporting. A lot of them are saying, we thought we were close to ISO already. But once we started our gap assessment, we realized we had more work to do than we expected.
And that's where EMA International comes in. We've helped companies through FDA inspections, ISO certification, EU MDR transitions, and now QMSR alignment. Our role isn't just to interpret the regs, but to help operationalize them.
We're helping teams map their current QMS to the ISO framework, identify where the controls fall short, and implement meaningful, compliant updates. And we do it in a way that builds lasting quality culture, not just short-term fixes. Because let's be real, this isn't just about passing your 2026 inspection. It's about building a system that actually supports good decision-making and product safety long-term.
Speaking of inspections, let's talk about how this shift will affect how the FDA evaluates compliance.
Yeah, so the FDA is using this transition as a chance to revise their QSIT inspection framework. That means inspectors will be trained to look at ISO-style systems, but through the FDA's lens.
Which makes things interesting because now companies need to be ready for questions like, how is risk evaluated in your design reviews? How do you ensure traceability through your supply chain? What data are you using for post market analysis?
And it's not just documentation anymore. It's show me how your system actually functions.
Exactly. Inspectors will expect to see evidence, not just policies. And that means training your staff across departments. Everyone from quality to engineering to purchasing needs to understand what QMSR means and their role.
That's a big one. Because one of the things we keep telling clients is this isn't just a quality team issue. This is cross-functional. This is organizational.
And companies that approach this as a one team job are going to struggle.
So if you haven't already started planning for QMSR, now's the time. Begin with a gap assessment. Look at your procedures, your records, your supplier agreements, and start identifying where you don't align with ISO.
From there, build a phased project plan. You don't have to change everything at once, but you do need a clear map with accountability.
If you're unsure where to start, Emma can help. We can guide your assessment, train your team, and support implementation through every phase.
This change isn't going away. And waiting until 2026 to address it is going to put a lot of companies in a bind.
It's not just a regulatory deadline. It's an opportunity to modernize your systems, streamline your operations, and position your company to compete in a harmonized global market.
And to build a quality system that's not just compliant, but resilient, ready for change, ready for growth, and ready to stand up to scrutiny.
Let's touch on something else here, how this affects global organizations. If you have facilities operating under different regulations across different markets, this is a chance to bring some consistency.
Absolutely. We've worked with a lot of multinational companies who've struggled to align their FDA regulated US sites with their ISO certified facilities overseas. QMSR could help simplify that, but only if it's implemented with a global mindset.
That might mean rethinking document control across sites, unifying audit approaches, or investing in digital QMS tools that can scale internationally.
And that's another area where companies can get ahead. QMSR doesn't require digital systems, but it sure helps. Having an EQMS in place makes traceability, version control, and audit readiness so much easier.
Exactly, especially when you're managing change control across multiple teams and suppliers. Manual systems can work, but they're harder to scale and validate.
And speaking of scalability, this is just as important for startups and small manufacturers as it is for the bigger players. Even if you're not selling globally today, but building a compliant system now sets you up for smoother growth down the road.
Right. We've seen a lot of smaller medtech companies get caught off guard when they go to scale or seek investors, and realize their QMS isn't ready for that level of scrutiny.
So, whether you're a large multinational or an emerging device innovator, this shift to QMSR is relevant. It's a unifying step forward for the industry.
Let's also mention training, because transitioning to QMSR isn't just about system updates, it's also about people. Employees need to understand why these changes matter and how they impact their daily work.
That's where internal communication plays a big role. The companies that succeed at this are the ones that treat it like an enterprise wide change management initiative, not just another quality project.
Right? It's about building awareness, providing role specific training, and making sure every team understands the why, not just the how.
Because at the end of the day, QMSR is about elevating quality, not just complying with it.
Exactly. And that mindset shift is what will separate the companies that thrive in this next chapter from the ones that just scrape by.
And we're seeing that play out in real time. Some organizations are really embracing the shift, using it as an opportunity to reassess how they operate, not just from a compliance standpoint, but from a business optimization standpoint, too.
Yeah, it's not just about ticking boxes anymore. It's about designing systems that actually support innovation and scalability. When quality is embedded into your operations instead of layered on top as an afterthought, the entire organization becomes more agile.
And that's critical, especially for companies preparing to launch new products or expand into new markets. A robust, aligned QMS can smooth out regulatory hurdles and speed up time to market, which is something leadership teams care a lot about.
We've also seen how this change has encouraged more interdepartmental collaboration. Regulatory teams are working more closely with R&D. Supply chain is talking to QA earlier in the process. It's driving better alignment across the board.
That kind of collaboration leads to fewer surprises down the line. When everyone's on the same page early, you're not constantly backtracking to fix issues that could have been caught upstream.
Let's talk a bit about timing. The amount of change management involved means that waiting too long to get started puts you at real risk of falling behind, not just with documentation updates, but with full organizational readiness.
And the FDA has been clear this isn't a soft deadline. They expect companies to be fully aligned by then, and they will begin enforcing the new requirements through inspections immediately following the deadline.
That's why 2025 is the real crunch year. This is the time for planning, assessment, implementation, and validation. If you wait until late 2025 to start, you're not going to make it.
What's interesting is how varied companies' starting points are. Some have been ISO aligned for years and just need to tighten a few controls. Others are facing a full system overhaul and they're realizing how much foundational work needs to be done.
We've already seen an uptick in requests for QMSR gap assessments, training, and remediation plans. Companies are starting to realize that this is not just about a few SOP rewrites, it's about rethinking how their QMS operates.
And in some cases, that means restructuring roles and responsibilities. Under QMSR, cross functional collaboration is more important than ever. Quality, regulatory, operations, purchasing, even IT all need to be on the same page.
Right, especially with the focus on data integrity and traceability. If your systems aren't integrated, or if your documentation lives in silos, then you're going to struggle to demonstrate compliance under this new model.
And that becomes even more important when you consider how much scrutiny data is under now. Regulators aren't just looking for policies, they're looking for clear, consistent, and accessible records that show your system works.
Let's not forget about the FDA's role in all this. They've said they're committed to helping the industry transition smoothly, and they've been publishing guidance and updates, but the onus is still on manufacturers to do the work.
Exactly. The FDA isn't going to hold your hand through this. They're providing the framework and the expectations. It's up to each organization to take it seriously and act proactively.
That's why EMA International is putting such a focus on QMSR support right now. We're not just reacting. We're helping clients get ahead of the curve, avoid last-minute panic, and build quality systems that truly perform.
Because the companies that wait too long are going to have to scramble. And when that happens, corners get cut, stress levels spike, and compliance suffers.
It doesn't have to be that way. With the right plan and the right partner, this can actually be a very smooth transition. And a really valuable one, too.
We've seen it firsthand. Clients who embraced ISO principles early on are now realizing that their QMS is not only more compliant, but more efficient, easier to scale, and better aligned with their business goals.
That's what this shift is really about. Yes, it's regulatory, but it's also strategic. It's about modernizing how we think about quality and how we operate as an industry.
And that's something we're passionate about at Emma. We believe compliance should empower innovation, not slow it down.
So if your team is starting to plan for QMSR or even just thinking about what it will take, now's the time to reach out. Whether you need a full system overhaul or just a readiness review, we're here to help.
We've developed tailored implementation programs based on company size, current compliance maturity, and risk profile, because there's no one size fits all approach. Our goal is to meet each client where they are and create a strategy that's realistic and effective.
That includes practical tools too, like document templates, audit readiness checklists, and live training sessions that demystify the technical language of ISO 13485 and translate it into action.
And we don't just drop off a plan and walk away. Our team stays engaged, providing change management support, performance tracking, and regular progress checks to ensure the transition stays on track.
We've even hosted cross-functional workshops for clients to help break down silos internally, aligning engineering, QA, RA, and manufacturing teams so everyone understands their role in the bigger picture.
And the feedback has been really encouraging. Leaders are telling us this process is helping them not only get ready for QMSR, but also uncover broader opportunities to improve processes and boost overall efficiency.
What's been especially rewarding is seeing how this regulatory shift is pushing organizations to take a fresh look at how their systems actually function day to day. Some are discovering gaps they hadn't noticed before, while others are realizing they've outgrown their current frameworks altogether.
We're also seeing more engagement at the executive level. QMSR isn't just a quality department conversation anymore. Leadership teams are recognizing it as a strategic initiative that impacts company reputation, risk exposure, and long term growth.
So while the compliance deadline is the main motivator, what's coming out of this for a lot of companies is something even bigger: long-term operational excellence.
And that's really the opportunity here. QMSR gives organizations a chance to modernize their infrastructure, standardize processes globally, and adopt a more data driven approach to quality and compliance.
Because at the end of the day, it's not just about passing inspections, it's about creating systems that support better decision-making, faster innovation, and safer products.
Visit emmainternational.com to learn more or connect with one of our experts directly for a confidential consultation.
And stay tuned, we'll be sharing more content on this transition over the coming months. From deeper dives into ISO clauses to practical tools for training and implementation.
Thanks for joining us today on the Emma International Deep Dive. We hope this conversation helped clarify what's changing, what it means, and how your organization can stay ahead of it. Okay,
Make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss our future episodes.
and as always, stay safe, stay compliant, and stay innovative.